Good morning, everyone. How are you? Can you hear me clearly? Fantastic. All right, my name is Kudi Maradzika, and today we'll be discussing, or rather unveiling, the success of Spinners, a co-production study. Coming off of the success of Cannes series, the reviews of this show have been nothing but phenomenal. I got the chance to see it yesterday, and I can definitely attest to the rave reviews that it is receiving. On the panel today, I'm joined by, please kindly introduce yourself and your title as well.
Ramadan Suleman, producer and co-founder of Natives at Large, the production company responsible in South Africa for Spinners.
Fantastic.
I'm Nicola from Niekerk. I'm the head of content for premium channels and for international co-productions, which is why Spinners falls into my portfolio.
And I am Alix Lebrat. I'm the COO of TV series at Studiocanal, which is the distributing company of Spinners. And we are both a production and distribution entity of European and other content, and we distribute them around the world.
Fantastic. Thank you for the introductions. Okay, so the first question that I have is, it's such a beautifully specific story. What attracted you both to it, and what made you want to be a part of it as Showmax and as Studiocanal?
Do you want to start?
Yes, yeah. I mean, I'll start by saying that when we received the concept, it is incredibly unique and authentic, which is something that we look for specifically. It also pushes the boundaries quite a bit, and that works very well for the Showmax platform. We were then incredibly, excited about the fact that there was an international party that is, interested in content like this, because you're always looking for a story that can travel well. So we were just super happy that you also felt that would travel well.
Yeah, I think it's definitely one of the assets of the show. And to us, when we received it, I think we were struck by two things. The first thing is that it's an action show with a spectacular twist, which is the spinning. And we felt that it would be amazing for the audience to get to see that on screen. And also it felt, as Nicola said, really authentic. And I think it has been produced with the local communities. I'm sure Abraham will say a word about that, which is very important for us too. But also it meets the local for global need, because it's a local story and it has been produced here and everything. But I think that the characterization is great, so the viewers can relate emotionally with the actors. And that's something that's really important for the international appeal of the series. And Canal Plus Africa, also, who is the other broadcasting partner on this in French-speaking Africa, was looking for this kind of action show with something special, and Spinners falls right into that.
Yeah. It's so interesting that you said that, because in watching it yesterday, I definitely felt that it is an action film with a lot of heart, and that's actually what connected. There's moments where you laughed, where you cried. It has everything. It's beautifully done. And then over to you, Ramadan, at what point did your production company get involved, and what was it like working with the two streamers?
Well, for me, it started first with Joachim Londo. I have to commend him for the brave decisions that he made. Firstly, the concept was him and Ben Hoffman, the two friends, basically. But also their decision, which is the success, was that they said coming to South Africa using local writers, coming to South Africa, no French technicians to come and work in South Africa. Those for me were the bold decisions by Joachim. That is the beginning of the success.
Amazing. So you speak of capitalizing on local talent, but I suppose maybe the one question that I do have is, how do you then ensure the quality? It's a very beautifully locally made show with international appeal, and it's quite a fine balance. How do you ensure that as a production company, but also how do you ensure that from an editorial perspective? I'll start with you.
Well, again, the whole process of putting together the team, for me, it all started 9 months before the production, because I had to look for those technicians, the crews. It took me a long while to prepare them, phone them to say there is this project coming to South Africa. Are you guys interested? I need you guys. And then at the same time, we had to also prepare from our side the whole management aspect. Because it's fine to do the creatives when the management aspects are not in place.
No.
Because it all tends to failure. So for me, it is all this ensemble of elements that for me were able to bring this together. But at the same time, bringing all these technicians, the crews, and the actors together, there was nothing as beautiful hearing the crew says, this is ours. This is our story. And when you would go to these places, you were dealing with families. You said love, what you saw. I also see families loving themselves, loving their communities. It's just not about gangsters. It's about love and family.
Beautiful. I completely agree. And that same question to you both. How do you then ensure that quality of storytelling that you have came through? What were some of the checks and balances that you put in place to ensure that?
I think that, well, when I discussed this with the content team at Canal Plus Africa, and they said something really important is that when they started working with Joachim on the writing, they were really ambitious in terms of writing. And I think that's also part of the creative process that leads to great production, is that you, in writing, have an amazing story, and the script you have, is really good. So you kind of know you have an amazing material to start with, and then it's also a question of trust with the production company you're working with. And I think that we found this trust with both Joachim and Ramadan, and so we have this really authentic story now because we had this amazing relationship down the road.
Yes, I mean, I think it's a magic mix, right? It's a balance. That's also where the local broadcaster is incredibly valuable. We also know the industry as well and could offer, Joachim and the team as much support as we could possibly do. And while it is, we had some of the best crew in South Africa on it. We're also the team who works across CakeNet, so we knew exactly who the best talent was, how to approach the communities with respect. So all of it worked. I think that's why it's such a wonderful project. It just all fell into place through an absolute process of authenticity and respect.
And obviously this is a production that will do well. I believe it'll do very well on both Showmax and on your platform. I understand from a local perspective why it would do well, but from an international perspective, why do you also think it will resonate with an audience?
Well, first thing first, really pragmatically, it's English speaking. And I do hope that foreign language will have a great success around the world, but at the moment it really makes a difference. Like, you have English speaking content, it travels better than any other language content. So that's the first asset for the series. And then it goes back to what we were saying before. I mean, you have a really good storyline of action along the series, which is really appealing to the viewers. But you also have so many emotions that you relate to the characters, and you actually want to see their journey, and you want to see what happens, and you relate to them, and you love the lead role, Cantona James. I mean, he's an amazing actor. He's going to be a star. I can tell you, I was in Cannes when we presented the show at Cannes Series, and the audience connecting so well to him that I'm sure we're going to hear about this one. It's a mix of all of this, the characterization, the action line, the fact that we were really ambitious in terms of production value, and it's English speaking. This is the great package to be sold internationally. And I'm really happy to share with you that in addition to having sold it to Canal Plus in France, we also have sold it to SBS in Australia. Wow. So the show is going to be aired in Australia really soon, and we're so proud of that. And
Incredible.
I'm sure many more are going to come.
Incredible.
Because
well done. That's a great achievement. Well, I just want to turn over to you. We've spoken about the things that the show is doing really well, but obviously it was shooting on the ground. There's a lot of very street-level casting, which makes it so beautifully authentic. What were some of the challenges, for example, that you faced during the production of this, if you want to speak to those?
Well, the challenges were, it's part of the script. You can't run away from it. Shooting in an area which is, for many of us here, is a no-go area. right? But it was the courage of how do you still go in there and be able to meet the community, have meetings with almost everyone, including the gangsters, right? Negotiating with everyone. But something beautiful happened in my view, which I experienced with some of the crew members who work in those communities, whereby every Saturdays they distribute food parcels. So already there is a link and communication between the crews that we didn't know, right? But that also played to our benefit as well. But there were instances where on 3 occasions we had to stop shooting because of killings that took place almost 50 meters away from our set. And we all know as well that the police were there to assist us in making sure that we are able to face these challenges. We would call off the shoot for 2 days or 3 days, waiting that things do calm down, because whenever there's a shooting, there's always a retaliation. So we had to manage all those elements. And, but that was the major challenge, but it wasn't a real challenge because it wasn't against us. But we were able to manage that. But the challenges as well was with the crew. Joachim gave us the liberty of making sure that we are bold in selecting the crew. For example, there aren't almost nil line producers in South Africa who are black. We insisted as natives at large to find them. Here you have a woman who has 7 years experience as a production manager, and yet she has all this experience, and we said, you are going to be the line producer with the help of Joachim. And the same thing applies with the key accountant. 5 years experience, knows it all, but never been given an opportunity of being a key accountant. And so for me, Spinners was all about giving opportunities. And it all started with Joachim by coming here and saying, this is the story we are going to do, and so forth and so forth.
Okay, thank you very much for your response. I think just touching on what you just mentioned now is the aspect of the colored community in Cape Town, and I was really happy to see the representation. It was phenomenal. And I want to speak to you about that. How, apart from obviously working with street level casting, how do you also ensure the integration of that community within the value chain in terms of production and casting, all of those things? How many additional points? Can you speak to that at all?
I'm not sure whether you are better placed to answer.
Well, there was nothing for me, the courage of going in there and shooting in there made the people feel that someone cares. There are people out there who cares. We used many of those houses in especially Lavender Hill, where we would use them as our wardrobe, makeup places inside those houses. So families felt that they were being paid for us to use their spaces. We had our caravans outside, but we felt that part of it needed to go into those homes for them to feel that, you know what, at the end of the week, we're going to be receiving a certain amount. So they in turn became our guards to make sure that nothing happened. So it went on throughout the production. It's all about them feeling we are not neglected. It is true that I call them so-called colored. I don't use the term colored because they're all black. I believe they do feel that they are being neglected in the whole political space. And us going there made them feel that they are wanted, somebody cares. So hence, I think it was last week when we even did a premiere in Lavender Hill. Again, they feel that, oh, these people do care by bringing the series in there. I wasn't there to watch.
Yeah, we had
response.
asked the City of Cape Town for assistance, and we were able to organize a community screening, and we have another one, I think, in October.
Okay,
Yeah.
beautiful.
Because we wanted to be able to show them the amazing work that was done before they see it on platform.
Yes. And can you speak to some of the reception that people had on watching
Yes,
it?
look, I mean, I think it's such a beautiful story, and they felt incredibly proud of it. It was a bit of a sensitive situation because the age restriction is quite high, and they wanted the entire family to go watch it. So there was like, oh gosh, no, the 4-year-old can probably not watch today. So that was a little situation that we had to face. But very proud of it, like proud of it, a sense of ownership to it, which I think is great.
Incredible.
Can I
Yes.
just add an anecdote? When we were working with some of the so-called gangsters as extras, after 3 days of working with them, they came to me and said, Mr. Ramadan, can you stop calling us extras? We are actors.
Good. I love the collaborative spirit that was on set and throughout this entire process. But speaking of co-production specifically, I know this is not the first co-production between Showmax and the Canal Plus group. What specifically about the African market is so interesting right now, firstly, and secondly, what are the types of stories you'd like to see more of in a co-production sense?
I think what's really quite nice and what I'm very thankful for in the working relationship with Canal is specifically that we're very clear on how our rights differ and are distributed across. So that's one thing that's really important. And what I also enjoy about a co-production with Canal is that they are not sort of, there's certain continents that you work with that would prefer a specific sort of standard of story that feels quite homogenous, where Canal really encourages fierce authenticity across the African continent. Language doesn't matter, even sometimes prefer not English, which I think is really fantastic. So that is why I think a co-production between us is incredibly beneficial, because we get hyper-localized pieces of content. So am I hyper-localized pieces of content? Am I breaking up, or is it I'm just tired? Is it me? Okay. No. Sorry.
Let's give a round of applause for energy.
Thank you.
For energy.
Yeah, so we end up with hyper-localized pieces of content that feed our platforms, and then we have a very good international partner. So I mean, for us, it's just content that resonates on the African continent in whichever place you are, in whichever language that you require. That will work for us, and then I hope for them.
Yeah. Yeah, no, definitely. On your first point, Africa is definitely a key market for the Canal Plus group, and it's very important also to develop local stories with local production, and language is also very important so that our audience can relate to what they see on screen. So that's the first thing about African projects. And then I think that with a partner like Mnet, as Nicola said, we know what works for our audiences. We are very clear with each other along the creative process, when we share notes, when we discuss what works, what doesn't work. And so that's really easy. And at the end of the day, we're looking for really ambitious stories, in terms of storytelling and production. So I think that where we meet together and when we can find the series that work for both of us. And then in terms of a co-production, of course, when there are, I think that it's really, there's a virtue to it in terms of developing, because we have many creative voices, so we have to confront each other, sometimes to fight a bit, but sometimes we agree on things, and that just makes the scripts better and better and better down the road. And then also the thing is that we have Canal Plus in French-speaking Africa, we have Mnet in English-speaking Africa, you have Studiocanal distributing it, and so you have more money, and that also is really important to produce good shows, let's be honest. So that's key for the success of a co-production as well.
Okay, so you guys in the audience heard it. If you want your story co-produced with Showmax and Canal Plus, you're looking for authentic stories that travel internationally.
Yeah.
and work locally as well. Amazing.
Exactly.
Okay, so just in terms of just some of the experiences you've had as a producer, there's a lot of producers in the audience. If you could just raise your hands, everyone in the audience who's a producer. Quite a few. I would imagine they would like to know what advice to take from you in terms of a co-production. How do you make it work as a producer, first-time producer wanting to do this and do it well?
Well, there's no recipe because it all depends on how the two of you producers or parties are able to sync with each other. My experience, I should say, is that Joachim, in doing his doctorate, I learned this when he first met me, through Zoom. And thanks to Zoom, because a lot was done initially. He had studied my works as part of his doctorate. So it made life easier. Right? But I think it's all about making sure that the producer who's coming to South Africa for the first time to do a project, it's important for the South African producer to make sure that facilitating and knowledge of the terrain, knowledge of the accounting systems, because at the end of the day, it's all about how do you manage the money. That for me is the bottom line. And I had to, based on our experience, reassure Joachim that we do have accounting, administrative, production management systems in place so that he is able to feel that if I am going to transfer 1 million to 2 million to natives at large, will that disappear? Will there be accountability? It's normal. Why must he trust me? He doesn't know me. He's never worked with me. So here is a producer who's taken about 3-4 years developing a project. And you come to South Africa, and this could be anywhere. Come to South Africa, how do you put at ease by giving certain, guarantees as to how you work and what is required? We had a list of 35 points with Joachim to be able to say to him, point A, point B, point C, point 3. Every one of them is were things that we were requiring in order for us to submit an application, for example, to the DTI, because Joachim wanted the DTI, right? Because it's a huge amount. You're dealing with 30%. And for us was to make him feel comfortable that we can try to get more, even if it's 2% more. Because a funder would want to know, can we get more from the DTI so that you pay less, right? And for me, it is all these little elements of management, making sure that things are done correctly, reporting mechanisms. How do you prepare systems so that the funders are comfortable in knowing that every week you will be receiving your cost reports, so that to be able to see that the monies are being spent appropriately. And I believe that productions do not have an excuse to make errors. You can't make an error, and this is my pride with Spinners. There wasn't a single accounting error, not a single one. And the book speaks for themselves. So to put ease other producers, we as South Africans have to make sure that things are in place, especially who authorizes at the bank. It can't be Ramadan alone. Who else? So we have to negotiate to say it has to be the production company in France, who in France is going to co-authorize with me, or who would be the third person in case one or two of us are not available on set, hence the line producer. So we put these things in place to make sure that everybody feels that, okay, we are at ease. It's all about trust. And at the end of the day, why must they trust me? I need to buy cars, isn't it? It's a South African habit now, isn't it? We buy cars. So they read about these things. And they want to feel at ease to say, okay, let's go ahead. So for me, as producers, it's all about building a trust and making sure that things run smoothly.
So that's a very interesting topic there, and I think I just want to settle there a little bit. Just from your experiences, obviously, what are you looking for as Showmax when a producer approaches you, apart from the systematic, detailed interrogation of work ethic and everything else? What are you looking for that would make you trust a producer to make something amazing?
You want me to?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I think a track record is everything. You know, you are only as good as your last episode, unfortunately. Also, I mean, at Multichoice, we make about 7,000 hours of content in a year. So we work with a massive variety of producers. So there is a lot for us to draw from. So we don't only work with established producers, but we do see the people coming up the ranks when they start creating their own production companies, and we'll know what they've worked on before. So we really do look at a track record. A co-production is a major financial risk. You have a license investment, you have an equity investment, you have a foreign partner that you cannot let down. So it's not, co-productions is not something we willy-nilly go into, and we really actually do look at making sure that there's a level of experience that comes with it so that all parties are safe.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think the track record is key. And I also think that the talents you're working with also speak for yourself. Did you find like a great writer? Do you have a great producing partner sometimes when you're producing on ground? Or do you have access to a great actor or actress that makes a difference in our territories, you know? So this is also a package that can attract us.
Fantastic. All right, so just on this aspect of co-production alone, I'd like to, because I do have a few more questions, but I'd like to open it up to the floor because I know there's some specific questions related to this. Is there a mic that can move around? And then we'll close off with a few more questions.
Okay.
We'll take the first question from you.
Sure. Good afternoon. The name is Andisa. I was hesitant when you were asking who are the producers in the room because I didn't know what you were going to do. It's actually not even a question. It's really a remark. I appreciate, this conversation and where it's been right now because as a social media producer transitioning into production or back into production, I really appreciate what you've shared, which is, the real case study of a co-production and what it means as a producer. And even the comments that have been shared. So I don't have a question, it's just to appreciate this time and moment that you've given us.
Okay, thank you.
Thank
Is there anyone else with a specific co-production question to ask? No? Okay, we'll move on. All right, so I do have a question in terms of the narrative for the film, particularly because it's such a strong world, so many strong characters. Would you like to do a second season, or is there a spin-off in question? Because it's such a rich world. It's almost like a Game of Thrones world, right? You're in it once and you realize there's so many characters that you can start exploring.
I kind of wish the same international success as Game of Thrones. Let's pray for that. Yeah.
Hopefully, we're going to have coffee after this to specifically discuss our hopes for a season 2. But I mean, the themes are universal. The characters are strong. I believe there's a recipe for a season 2.
Yeah.
If we were to.
Yeah.
Fantastic. And then I'm personally curious to know what else Showmax has in the pipeline, what else Natives of Large has in the pipeline, and what you have in the pipeline. Maybe you can start with you. What else are you working on currently that you'd like to share with everyone?
Well, there's a few projects. One of them is negotiations with imprint of Federation on a project with Natives at Large. We are early days in discussion. And of course, there are other projects that Natives at Large is developing with other producers. But yeah, you want to stay away from discussing too much.
Okay, all NDA sealed. Yes, okay, of course. And then on your end?
I mean, I'm in the very fortunate position that there is so much rolling out for Showmax in the next 12 months. I shouldn't even start because I also don't know which ones I can announce yet. Kevin's looking at me like, zip it, lock it, put it in your pocket. Sorry.
Don't say anything.
Yes, but in terms of Canal, I know that we are looking at some exciting West African co-productions. I think that we want to focus on and grow. And oh no, there's just too many. I can't say
Too
more.
many. Okay.
Very exciting. If you don't have Showmax, what are you waiting for?
Yeah, I'm not going to be very different from that. Well, Canal Plus in Africa is releasing 6 to 8 original series a year, so you will have plenty to watch, and we are trying to find some more co-production opportunities with our friends at Mnet, so
Nice.
more to come soon.
Lovely. So I know you mentioned that co-productions are quite risky, but to close it off, I think I would like to leave it on a fairly positive note. What are the benefits of a co-production? You've mentioned the positioning internationally, locally, but also empowerment. But what else would you say are the benefits of a co-production?
No, I think we've said it. I think that the creative work is more, it's more difficult sometimes, but it makes it better at the end of the day. The production process is also, I think, better because we are trying to work with trusted partners and local communities, so that makes a difference. More money makes a difference. Making the show international is also really important so that it travels and we can maybe have a successful season 2 as well and have money to do it. So, it's and at the end of the day, on a positive note, when a co-production works well, it's also a human story working well, and that's really important because we have been working together, we have an amazing show, we are so proud of it, it's really emotional, and that's key in our jobs.
Look, I think a co-production is the golden piece of content that every producer wants to do because it gives you ownership. Not only is your name out in the industry, your IMDb looks amazing, and there is an IP ownership and a profit share if you build your business model in a smart way that I think is incredibly beneficial for any producer. So it's something to shoot for anyway.
Yeah.
For me, it's the days of one broadcaster funding the whole project on their own. I just believe it's over because of the costs involved. So sharing of costs brings down the risk of that one single broadcaster. So being able to co-produce among themselves where you have 2 partners or 3 or 4, it brings down your costs. So that for me is the future.
Fantastic. All right, thank you very much, guys. I think we're just going to have a few more questions. You guys did not seem too inquisitive earlier, but perhaps maybe now you have some questions. Anyone on the floor?
We have successfully answered all questions.
Yes, they have
Questions.
successfully cleared all of your
have been
questions.
really good.
That's amazing. Thank you very much, panelists, for your
Thank you
time.
so
Thank
much
you.
for your
And thank you, everyone, for attending.
Thank you, guys. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ramadan.